One word to describe the future of marketing?
Doomed.
I thought you'd say multicultural or something.
Oh, well, if it's not multicultural, it's doomed. There you go.
What have been some of the key lessons learned in your journey for advocating for more inclusive marketing practices?
They're all empathy based. So they're all empathy based and they're all inclusion focused.
Welcome to Marketing Over Chai. Today I have with me Gavin Barrett, whose wealth of experience makes it really hard to write out a good introduction. He's a dynamic leader in multicultural marketing and a passionate advocate for diversity and inclusion here in Toronto. I was very lucky to get to meet him in the first week I landed in Toronto, and he gave me a very good view of what to expect in the marketing field here. Gavin has rich experience in crafting marketing strategies that resonate with diverse audiences. He also plays a very active role in the POCAM, that is the People of Color in Advertising and Marketing initiative, which drives positive change here in the industry. Join us as we explore his career journey, delve into the nuances of multicultural marketing, and discuss the impact of his work with POCAM. Welcome, Gavin. I'm very happy to have you here today. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me, Kate. And it's a real pleasure to be here. I've been looking forward to reconnecting and doing this with you.
Thank you. So let's jump in, Gavin. Can you share us a little bit about your career journey and what led you to become this champion for diversity in this field?
I don't think I'm such a champion for that. I think a champion for diversity. I happen to be where I am, and I happen to have some uh, privilege. I think after more than 35 years in this business and as a business owner, but I also have hard experience as an immigrant and as a person of color, and uh, the two things brought together in me as a human being actually makes it impossible for me not to be engaged in this space, to share what I know, to return to the community what I have got, to leave things better than I found them. So those are sort of the motivations for me, uh, and I hope the work I'm doing has some effect, but I don't always know if that's the case. I know that's the second question you asked, actually. The first question was about my journey. Uh, well, the journey is a long one. You've had a career I began my career in 1987. So that tells you how long I've been in the business. At a certain point, you stop counting. But I began in India. I have a master's degree in English literature from Bombay University, and before that in economics from St. Xavier's College, also in Bombay University. Uh, I began my career at Lintas in India, in Bombay. Then went on to a company that was famous at the time as being one of the most creative agencies in India. It was called Rediffusion. It was
Mm-hmm.
owned by Y&R at the time. And then I moved on from there to Hong Kong. I got married. My wife and I really liked Hong Kong. We knew we were going to be immigrating to Canada and we needed to live somewhere else, sort of accumulate a bit of a nest egg before coming to Canada. So I worked in Hong Kong at the best agencies there, at J. Walter Thompson, which no longer exists, RIP, J. Walter, and at Leo Burnett in Hong Kong. And then I came here and I worked for McLaren McCann, as it was called then. It's now just McCann. And then I worked for Vickers and Benson Arnold, which was an agency. It was just Vickers and Benson, the grandest and oldest of Canadian independent agencies. And then it was bought by Havas, merged with Arnold, then merged with Euro RSCG, and now no longer exists. It's just Havas. And so that happened in 2001. Vickers and Benson got acquired by Havas. I went independent for a while as a creative director. Because I do both copywriting as well as art direction, and I come from both disciplines. Uh, I, I was lucky to be able to act almost as my own mini agency when I went independent, and I did that for 3 years. And in 2003, I thought, you know what, this is going really well. Time to make this a real business, a real agency, and that's how I launched Barrett and Welch. So that's the career journey, and I've been doing Barrett and Welch ever since 2000, since then, 2003 to now. It's 2024. We are 21 years in business. Uh, you know, I really love the fact that we are have managed to be in an important place, uh, and I think we've an agency like ours has appeared at an important time for Canada because of Canada's commitment to multiculturalism, and that's what we do, of course, as an agency.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. I really appreciate your support as I launch. Please hit subscribe, grab a cup of chai, and let's get back to the episode. What has been one of your favorite multicultural marketing campaigns that you've worked on, and what made it stand out? Can you give us a few examples?
I have to give you a few examples because it's hard to pick one. So I'm gonna start with an example. I always describe this as my favorite client, and I think actually he is one of the world's favorite people, uh, uh, the Dalai Lama.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
well, as they say, the Dalai Lama here, or the Dalai Lama in Canada. But the Dalai Lama, every time he came to Canada, did one of his public talks. Uh, we as an agency did the advertising for his public talks. And it was an extraordinary privilege to be able to do work for him, for someone, a soul as great as that. Uh, his talks were usually about peace and achieving peace, both for the self and for the world. And so we focused on that. And so that's one of my favorite campaigns where we actually used footage of the Dalai Lama and his own voice. But we also used, just people I knew. We cast people I knew to sort of allow the Dalai Lama to speak through them. And if you see the
Beautiful.
commercial, you'll know what I mean. They're on our website. So that's one. Another campaign I'm particularly proud of is we did a campaign for Mina Halal, which is Maple Leaf Foods. Maple Leaf is one of the biggest food brands in Canada, food manufacturers in Canada,
Hmm.
mostly meat. But we did a campaign for Mina Halal, which is their halal food brand,
Oh,
which is mostly halal chicken. And our
nice.
campaign was entirely digital, based on mobile. It appeared actually on the Weather Network app, within the Weather Network app, and it was a campaign that fasted with you. If you were a Muslim fasting during Ramadan,
Wow.
during the hours that you were fasting, so between sun up and sundown, the ad didn't show food products on a plate. It waited till sundown,
Wow.
and then the ads would update dynamically. During the day, it would be an empty plate that we showed, traveling through the sky, representing the passage of the sun, and telling you how much more time till you could break your fast with Mina Halal.
Beautiful.
So yeah, it was really a lovely campaign. But we're also doing some very interesting. We've done some gold award winning work for New Canadian Media, which is an immigrant and refugee journalist not for profit.
Hmm.
We did our work for POCAM. We do POCAM's advertising as an agency. We volunteer our services, donate our services to POCAM's cause. And we did this ad called White Space, which basically was a tiny little black arrow at the bottom of a page that pointed up and said, the problem with Canadian advertising. And it was all white. So, which really illustrates the challenges of working in Canada in a systemically white industry. Uh, and yeah, most recently we've done a really cool campaign for IELTS, the IELTS testing by IDP, the English language test, and
Hmm.
we've done an AI based campaign, which is which is so cool, which has videos from the future of your baby all grown up and speaking to you from the future.
Aw,
It's just AI generated, we AI customized, rather, not AI generated, AI customized, to give parents a sense of who it was that they were saving money for, whose education that they were saving money for. It's hard to look at your little baby and say, oh yeah, I can see this person as a doctor, as an engineer, as a psychologist or anything, because they're little children. So the AI allowed us to do that. Yeah.
that is very creative. That is very creative. And there's like so much of like you really know your audience, and you really take trouble to like understand what they're going through, especially the one that the Eid campaign that you just mentioned, that fast the Maple Leafs campaign that fasted with you. Like, how do you approach building such multicultural marketing strategies that authentically connect with various cultural groups? Like you work for very different ones, and how
Mhm.
do you maintain this unified brand message? Because they're not only talking to a cultural group in isolation, they are talking to everybody. So how do you maintain that unified brand message?
So, it's very interesting because, well, take Mina Halal, the halal example that I just gave you, the halal campaign that I just gave you, ads that fast with you. Uh, I'm not Muslim,
Hmm.
so how does one arrive at a thing like that? The strategist, head of planning who worked on that, he wasn't Muslim. He comes from Punjabi Hindu background. How did he come up with the insight? It's really, at the end of the day, it's about being genuinely open, genuinely inquisitive and curious about uh, what makes another human being the human being they are, and that
Yeah.
requires empathy. That. So I think the biggest secret to doing great, truly, you know, moving multicultural work is to have uh, genuine empathy for the people you are speaking to, so that you learn to think as them, to feel as them. Um, and I've had to experience, I was forced to discover this very early in my career in India. And in advertising, you become a serial. You're not a generalist. You're actually a serial expert. You become an expert in each new thing,
Yep.
and so I had to learn how to, for example, advertise to car mechanics in this is in India who couldn't read. They
Wow.
had not been, so yet you have to create advertising that would. So what did you do? You did things like radio, which
Hmm.
they could hear and understand perfectly. I had to advertise to Muslim tailors, who just happened to
Hmm.
be Muslim, but they also happened to be men. So as opposed to what we typically associate in the West with clothes being sewn by women,
Hmm.
clothes are very often sewn by male tailors in India. So, and I was
Yes.
advertising threads to them. And
Hmm.
I was nothing like these people. And then I went to Hong Kong, and the majority of my audience was Chinese. And that I was asked all the time, how could you, as an Indian, in Hong Kong as an expatriate, figure out what was going on and come up with insightful camp? Same thing to this day. It's empathy. It's understanding who they are as human beings, being curious and being receptive yourself. There's a great song that is my guiding principle. It's from the 60s. It's by a band called The Hollies. And there's just one
Hmm.
line of the song you need to know, and it explains everything about empathy. And the line is, he ain't heavy. He's my brother.
Oh yeah. My mom used to play this one when I was growing up. Yeah.
It really captures everything.
Yes. And but it's easier said than done, right? Like you hear a lot of people talking about empathy in marketing, but it's rare to actually see campaigns that you connect with and that people connect with. So it's very beautiful that you're able to do that and do that so well. Um,
Thank you.
and on that same empathy, like can you tell us a little bit about your work with POCAM and what it is and how it has influenced your views with diversity and inclusion in the marketing industry?
So, I'm one of six co-founders, original co-founders of POCAM, of which three of us are still very active in the organization, and three others have moved on to other things in their lives, different causes, some of them in a similar space, in fact. Um, when when we co-founded POCAM, we originally started by asking ourselves, is there an organization for people like us, people of color, in the advertising and marketing industry? I've been writing this series of profiles every year for Black History Month to celebrate Black professionals, who, in the Canadian industry. And I'd begun writing it in response to a complaint that I was hearing that people couldn't find Black professionals to hire. And
Right.
I just thought it was BS. I didn't think it
Hmm.
was true. And then a friend of mine who we became friends on LinkedIn, but another passionate advocate for this space, Derek Walker of the agency Brown and Browner, decided he was going to do these profiles in the US. And I saw that and I thought, what a simple, brilliant idea. Let me ask him if I can do the same for Canada. And he said, no, please do. At the moment, we should have one everywhere in the world. And so I began the Canadian thing. And it was this group of people that I had first written about who raised this question and asked this, is there an organization for people like us? And the answer was no. So a few of us got together and we said, why don't we start it? It turned out there were some of us doing similar things in small ways. So, for example, one of us had a POCAM, a LinkedIn group called POCA. Another, I was doing this Black History Month series. Another was doing another initiative, And so we came together, we put our heads together, and we launched POCAM just before the pandemic. We had our first meeting in May 2020 online in the heart of the pandemic. And then at the end of May, George Floyd got murdered, and it completely changed. We thought we'd have an organization that was bringing together people like us, and just so it was more of a networking and community. But George Floyd's murder transformed POCAM into an activist advocacy organization. We became very sharp focused on what we needed to do and on the change that needed to be brought about in the industry. And so within 15 days of George Floyd's murder, I wrote the Call for Equity, which is based on an American call, but the Call for Equity, which I wrote, is modeled for the Canadian setting. So it addresses Indigenous rights, for example, and addresses other people of color as well. But it's, it starts with Indigenous and Black Canadians, because the maximum injustices have been experienced by them, and moves on to other persons of color. But and it asks for agencies to sign up for 12 commitments to make our industry more diverse, more equitable. And it asks clients to sign 15, respecting the fact that they have the money, and because they have money, they have the power to influence agencies to change. So that was sort of. So being in POCAM has exposed me to other points of view and other experiences. We're those of us who lead POCAM, we're a very diverse group ourselves. Three of us who are Black, four of us who are Black. There are two of us who are South Asian, two of us who are Indigenous, three of us who are Indigenous, and one who's Filipino, one who's East Asian, Chinese, Canadian, in fact. So we're a very diverse group, and our experiences of challenge, discrimination, diversity, microaggression in our own careers in Canada are all varied, and yet they have some certain common grounds. And so we've been able to really enrich each other. I've been enriched tremendously by working with my fellow POCAM co-founders and SteerCo members. And every day I get a chance to meet with them. I learn something new, and I'm humbled by how much I still have yet to learn, especially when I hear about their experiences of discrimination. And I realized my comparative privilege and how much, and I think that's one of the things I've learned most of all at POCAM, is to acknowledge my own privilege every time. And, one of the most common privileges I experience is being a man, for example, and even as a man of color, I still have privilege as a man because I'm a man. And acknowledging that allows me to reset and rebalance and practice some kind of empathy in the space that I'm in. So that is something I definitely learned through my POCAM experience and the stories that we've shared with each other.
That is beautiful. Like you gave me goosebumps while you were talking, because you guys are doing like actual work that impacts so many people, gives hope to so many people, and allows so many people to know, to recognize what's happening and to take action accordingly. And I feel like I'm very blessed that I've come to Canada at a time where there were so many people before me, like yourself, who've gone out and spoken about how different things are for people who look different. And because of that, it's relatively easy for me. I have a lot of advantage, or a lot of people understand me better because of the work that you and people in your generation have done. And a big thank you for that from everyone. In my
Oh,
generation, I
thank you.
think we ought to acknowledge that. Moving on, what impact do you see from POCAM's efforts in the industry, and what progress have you already witnessed? You kind of touched upon that already.
So yeah, I think there has been huge change since the murder of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement, and in our industry, with the presence of POCAM as an active advocacy organization, a huge change. And I do want to acknowledge that there has been huge change. But at the same time, I have to say there has not been enough change. So we've had huge change, and we've had not far from enough change. So we're still a systemically white industry. We're
Mm-hmm.
still loaded, the dice are still loaded against Black, Indigenous, and other persons of color professionals from various parts of the
Mm-hmm.
world. Most newcomers know exactly what I'm talking about because they struggle so hard to break in, so hard. And every time, and I try to meet every newcomer who asks me for a meeting. I try to meet every single one. And it's impossible to meet every single one. And the stories are both, first of all, I have to lift them up and say the stories are also inspiring. First of all, inspiring because there's so much determination, so much talent, so much hard work, so much ambition and vision and willingness to be flexible, and so these are incredible people. They're also extremely skilled, extremely skilled, and but it's also really hard to hear how they're being excluded,
Yeah.
and so that energizes me to keep doing the work that we're doing in POCAM. And to even personally, and even at Barrett and Welsh, the at the agency that I'm running and the agency that I own and founded, we're very focused on this. We act as
Mm-hmm.
a talent pipeline for the industry. We take the risk and we hire newcomers, and we know that these are people of quality. And I'm not just talking about newcomers, but across the board. We won't pretend to have an indigenous capability. We will work with an indigenous person or team or another, partner agency and make sure that we are doing work that is truly rooted in indigeneity and acknowledges indigenous principles. And, so we don't like to be pretenders. If we have a work that is focused on the Black community, we make sure that there's a Black creative team or a Black strategist, again, we want to empower the people we work with. We don't want to
Beautiful.
merely show them in the ads. We want to give them leadership positions at the table. And that's consistent inside of POCAM and inside of Barrett and Welsh as well. And that's a passion point for me.
That's beautiful. That's the change that we need. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced in promoting a multicultural marketing with organizations? I'm sure it couldn't have been easy.
It's not easy even now. It's, I've been in this particular business with my agency, Barrett and Welsh. Barrett and Welsh has been around for 21 years. We were founded in 2003. And I've been evangelizing for multicultural marketing since the first day. It is extraordinary to me that multicultural Canada, specifically multicultural Canadians of color, account for what the Canadian government calls visible minorities, account for 30% across Canada, 30% of the Canadian population across Canada. It used to be, when I came here, it was a very small amount compared to that. It was, I think, about, 15% or something. So we've really grown as a percentage of population. But this is a Canadian average. 80% of Canada lives in cities. More than 80% of Canada lives in cities. Urban Canada, in Toronto, in Calgary and Montreal, we're talking about numbers above 35%. Okay, Montreal, that's Montreal and Calgary. In Toronto and Vancouver, we're talking in numbers above 55%. So in other words, more than half the population is a visible minority. More than half the population was not born in Canada. And marketers continue to spend on average, and 2% of their marketing dollar. So $2 out of every $100 is invested in multicultural, when the population is 55% in a city like Toronto, or at the very least 30% in a Canadian, average. So that's the biggest challenge I have. The biggest challenge I have is there's a lot of performative, unsubstantive action on the part of marketers, lots of talk, but not enough respect for the audiences that they profess to be interested in, because it's not accompanied by the necessary investment. It takes dollars. The dollars speak, and the dollars are not spread out. The dollars are still largely invested in an older kind of Canadian, by which I mean largely white. I'm being very blunt there, but that's the truth. And including even the jokes in advertising show that we're making inside jokes that an immigrant just wouldn't get. It's like, what is that ad about even? That's because we're stuck in the past. Advertising hasn't moved forward, and that's another challenge. That's because the industry hasn't evolved. Despite the fact that POCAM has pushed so hard and changes have happened, diversity is at an all-time high right now. But people who are people of color still feel, the ill effects of a systemically white environment, working environment. So even if you're a newcomer and you are lucky enough to get that job, it will hurt. The environment you find yourself in will be, it won't be positive. It won't be all positive. It'll be difficult. It'll have challenges that come with it, whether those are microaggressions or other biases that you have to face.
Yep. And I think some of it is like stuff that you don't realize that happens in the moment. It's like way after it has happened, you realize. But I'm really lucky that there's so much of information out there that we can navigate the space a lot better. And yeah, it is a bit of a learning curve when you get into, marketing here, because you are trying to get the inside jokes. It's a little bit of extra work, but, it's something that we're all willing to put in at the end of the day. What have been some of the key lessons learned in your journey for advocating for more inclusive marketing practices?
Again, my guiding principles and the guiding principles of this agency are to walk in the other person's footsteps. They're all empathy-based. So they're all empathy-based and they're all inclusion-focused. I often say that there's an undue emphasis on the word diversity. So, in diversity, equity, and inclusion, there's an undue focus on the word diversity. And I always say diversity is just descriptive. It says that we are a diverse population. Yeah, great. So what? What are you going to do about the fact that we are a diverse population? And for that, you need to take inclusive action. So diversity is description, inclusion is action, and equity is our destination. Where we want to get to is we want to get to the place where we are truly equal. We truly have a seat at the table. We truly have power. And the power is in question. We aren't a rare brown person who heads an agency or a rare black person who heads an agency. We are naturally at the table, at the head of the table. Yeah.
Beautifully put.
So,
what are some of the emerging trends in multicultural marketing that you're most excited about, and how do you see them shaping the future of the industry?
I think you can't do multicultural work without it being people first, which brings it into an interesting zone of conflict with technology, because the vast majority of our work in technology has been focused on replacing people. And when I say this, I'm talking about things like AI, for example, which is being heavily utilized as a quick replacement for a writer, for example, or for for an artist or a photographer. The truth is there is no replacement for people. The final photograph is only the output. The final document is only the output, written by the person, or photographed or illustrated by the person with the talent. the thing that was inside that person's mind is so complex and so beautiful and so random and so irreplaceable that technology can never replace that. And you take that and you multiply that with culture, which is what multicultural marketing and advertising is really centered on. The truth is, all advertising is centered on culture. Advertising uses pop culture and cultural reference all the time. But multicultural is even more nuanced and more fine-tuned and more precise. And so I see that we're going to arrive at a really interesting space where this conflict will not become conflict anymore. It'll be a clearly a liberating artistic space for humans, especially in the multicultural space, to be authentic and true and to be able to represent that to each other and, in advertising and marketing. And the technology will be used to produce, will be used to do the grunt work.
Yes.
Because, I know there are some people who like to fold clothes and do the laundry, but really that's what AI should be used for, so that
Absolutely.
we can be the creative, incredibly fulfilled human beings that, and fulfilling, the dreams of others as well in the process. That's what AI should liberate us to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we'll see that first in the multicultural. That's my hope, in the multicultural space.
That is very well put, and I completely agree with that. Like, there is, at least like for a designer, AI has done so much hours just cleaning up a background is now done in like a few seconds with the help of AI. You just at the click of the button. So it really is very empowering for some of us. And any tools or technology you find very effective for your work?
So I'm not a fan of ChatGPT, but there is a research tool that I really like. It's called Elicit.ai, which is fantastic. By the way, I've experimented with ChatGPT and I've experimented with Bing and Copilot and Midjourney. I've tested them all and tried to figure out what works best. Why does it work a certain way? What won't work? So I'm very open to understanding how these things are doing the work that they do. But I'm also concerned that I don't teach them my secrets. Because I don't want to be replicated. In fact, I would rather spike their drink than drink their drink.
Yeah, that's
So there will always be people like me who will play with the machine, but rather than let the machine play with us.
You've really given me something to think about, because I've been using ChatGPT as my intern and like practically like giving it a brain dump like almost every day. But yeah, that would give it so much power over me in the long run, which is something I didn't really think about. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's good uses though for ChatGPT, and I won't dismiss the usefulness of these things as long as we are limiting them to the things that help us become better at being human.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what advice do you have for aspiring marketers and who want to specialize in multicultural marketing and make a significant impact here?
So it's the same as I would give anybody in any part of advertising or marketing, which is immerse yourself in the field, really understand everything that has been done that is great. Understand what is great. So study the best work. Do not waste your time studying the crap, average stuff. There is too much of that, and it is too easily accessible. It is harder to find the good work, by the way, and that is why very often people don't study it. And that is why average continues to produce average, and that produces more average, and it's just an endless circle. In the early days of the internet, there was a phrase, garbage in, garbage out, gigo. And it's the same with the study of anything. You want to put really fabulous things in your mind. So at the risk of sounding, immodest, study the work that we do as an agency. It really it's sort of a textbook for multicultural. Um,
Mm-hmm.
how it should be done right, how it should be done with driven by insight, how it should be done with great creative always. There's a lot of insightful work because there are good practitioners of insight and strategy in our space, but there's not enough great creative work in our space. I've been trying very
Mm-hmm.
hard to say that that is essential. Otherwise, we're strategy consulting firms and not advertising agencies. To be an ad agency, you have to do great creative. Uh, so study the
Mm-hmm.
work, understand what makes it tick. What is an ethical way to do multicultural advertising? How to be authentic and walk in those shoes. I keep talking about empathy. Try being. Uh, Try understanding what it means to live life as a Chinese Canadian. If you're an Indian Canadian, try understanding what it means to live life as a Black Canadian. Uh, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Visit different parts of your city where these communities live, and make sure you have friends from these communities, rather than,
Mm-hmm.
we tend to form ghettos of comfort because
Mm-hmm.
we are very uncomfortable with operating outside our own comfort zones.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the more you operate outside your own comfort zone, the better, because you will grow as a human and you will grow as a professional. So that's my advice.
Yep, I am definitely working on that, embracing what is uncomfortable and learning and growing and staying motivated to do that every day because it's so easy to choose the lazy path. Yeah. So, how do you manage work life balance while engaging both in your professional roles as well as your advocacy roles? Like, you've got a lot going
Oh,
on.
don't talk to my wife about this. She would say that I have no work-life balance at all, uh, and she would probably be right. So there are two or three things here. One is, uh, I'll just start with the most obvious thing. As a business owner, you're on call all the time. Uh,
Hmm.
you're you're always available to your business. So it's a 24/7 thing. You're always thinking, you're always connecting, you're always putting one thing together with another thing. Uh, and the, so that means that your work-life balance is blown. On the other hand, it does give you certain advantages because it's your business, you own it. You can decide if you have to take time off. You do have to have really good people that you've hired. I've been very lucky. I've always had a great team supporting me, and they've been fantastic people. And I've been able to take time off and know that the office and the agency is in good hands. That's been sort of one of the ways I've approached that. The same thing with advocacy work. Advocacy work can really burn you out, your mental health, because what you when you're doing that kind of work, you are exposed to such raw and powerful, human experiences, so many of them, that it can destroy you if you're not careful. So you have to give yourself space. You have to give yourself time to rest. You have to find support. So in POCAM, for example, the steering committee, we are such enormous supporters of each other. We draw so much strength from each other. We would not be able to do the work we do, or even live as we are as people of color in our business, if we did not have this kind of ability to draw so much strength from each other. So that's how I do it in the advocacy sense. But my biggest, and I'm coming back to one of my themes, which is to be a person of color in a systemically white working environment, like in Canadian advertising and marketing, is in itself the most exhausting thing, because it forces you to ignore your work-life balance. Uh, we talk about model minorities and doing double work. The truth is, you have to do 2 to 3 times the amount of work. And Derek Walker and I did a podcast a long time ago about exactly this, the impact it has on our health. You know, uh, so being a person of color and being a professional, being somebody who's talented, being somebody who has any ambition, you work 3 to 4 times harder than somebody who's your equivalent, 3 to 4 times easily. And you know the ease with somebody who is not a person of color succeeds with the barest amount of effort is really it really brings home this point, the amount of the the amount that it exhausts you, wears you out, damages your mental health, damages your physical health, drives up your blood pressure, causes heart disease, all kinds of this stuff, and there's data to prove it. So we know that this is the case. So yeah, so that's my biggest insight is try to avoid exposure to that as much as possible. Seek others like you to create community so you can draw strength from them. And these things allow you to create more of even if you can't create the separation, you at least get the pleasure of community. And that is really good for your mental health and physical health as well.
And do you have any hobbies or interests which help you unwind and stay inspired?
I drink. No.
That's a good one.
No. I should be more serious. I write. I describe advertising as my day job or as my public job. My vocation is as a writer. I write poetry. I'm a published poet. I run a reading series. I also have advocacy in the poetry world. I just joined the League of Canadian Poets as its co-chair for its DEI committee. Poetry is the world of poetry and the world of literature are the most important thing in my life outside of my family. So that's the other thing, spending time with my daughters who are grown adult women, and my wife, really that changes everything. If I can be on a beach with them all the time and occasionally check into the office, just long distance from, Goa, nothing would make me happier than that. But unfortunately, I can't do that. So I just try to spend time with them. Yeah.
So this brings us to the rapid fire round. So Gavin, you know how this works. I'll just read out a question and you got to hit me with what's the first thing that comes to your mind, and very quickly. So are you ready?
Yes.
What's your favorite social media platform?
Instagram.
Email marketing or content marketing?
Email marketing.
Influencer marketing or affiliate marketing?
Influencer marketing.
Long form content or short form content?
Long form. I'm a writer.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Night owl. Can't go to sleep.
City life or the countryside?
This is tough because I'm a city boy through and through. City life.
Okay. Biggest marketing trend of 24 according to you?
I think it's still AI.
One word to describe the future of marketing?
Doomed.
I thought you would say multicultural or something.
Well, if it's not multicultural, it's doomed. There you go.
Okay. Most overhyped marketing tool?
ChatGPT. Sorry, kids.
No, it's true. Most underrated marketing strategy?
Thinking.
Okay. Best piece of marketing advice you've ever received?
Walk in the shoes of your consumer. Literally
Beautiful.
Take the same journey you're asking them to take.
Beautiful. First thing you do in the morning?
It's interesting. I check my emails.
Nice.
In bed.
Yeah, I go on to LinkedIn, like that's my first thing. A hobby you're passionate about?
Well, I like, in addition to everything literature and poetry, I do like cycling.
Nice.
So, yeah.
A book everyone should read?
So this is probably something, the collected works of John Donne, which is, a metaphysical English poet from way back when, from the reign of Queen Elizabeth and King James, who is one of the most amazing poets to have ever lived. Everything in his book of collected poems is an inspiration.
Wow. I'm going to get my hands on that. What's your favorite ad ever?
Also very tough. By an ad that I made or an ad in general?
It can be anything. Anything. Something you watched when you're growing up also counts.
I actually really loved an ad out of the UK called for Guinness called I think it was called Surfers, which was just, it felt like poetry.
Beautiful.
It didn't feel like an ad. It was a black and white ad, featured this thundering surf and these horses basically emerging out of the surf. The surf, and I think it was a piece of poetry. That was the voiceover.
I'm gonna look for it later. One skill every marketer should have.
Listening. The ability to listen.
That is true. Your proudest professional achievement?
So I've won a lot of awards in my life, but when I went to an award show and I came back home without any awards, my wife had told my daughters that had happened already. So when I arrived home, they had made their own paper mache awards for me.
Aww.
And I have them to this day. I mean, they're grown women, 30 and 28, but I have the little paper mache awards they made for me, to make up for the fact that I came home that night from the award show without any awards. For a change.
That is so sweet. That is so sweet and so thoughtful.
My proudest professional achievement.
That is too cute. If you could work in any industry other than marketing, what would it be?
Oh, that's easy because I'm already in that other industry, which is writing, literary writing, as a full-time writer. Yeah.
Oh, wow. If you could instantly become an expert in something, what would it be?
Motion graphics.
Yeah,
I really like
that
motion
is a good
graphics.
skill. And if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
On a beach in the south of Goa.
Oh, wow. Nice. I'm going to give you a moment to talk about anything that you want to, whether it's POCAM or whether it's Barrett and Welsh or whether it's your poetry or all of it, because they're all great. And I'll be putting links in the YouTube description so that if you want to check out Gavin's work, his website, and some of the things we talked about earlier, you can find that there. Gavin, the floor is yours.
Okay. So, in addition to POCAM, in addition to Barrett and Welsh, there are two things I've written that I very much, and in addition to Call for Equity, which I actually wrote, there are two things I've written which I'd like to share. One is my book of poetry, Understand. It's like spelled like understand without the D. Understand, like a place.
Nice.
Yeah. Which was brought up by Moenzi House in 2020. Moenzi House is an independent publisher run by M.G. Vasanji and Nurjahan Aziz, who is his wife. M.G. Vasanji, of course, is, I think, one of only two-time Giller Prize winners in Canada. So, excellent publisher. And so I direct you all towards my book, and you can find it via my literary website, which is gavinbarrett.com. And the other thing I'd like to point everyone to, anyone who's interested in a more just and equitable industry, creative industry, any creative industry for that matter, I've written a free resource called Creativity with a Conscience. Creativity with a Conscience is basically, it's an ever-growing archive of free resources to make your creative practice conscious, equity-focused, inclusion-driven, and anti-racist. And so it's available for anybody to use for free. I'm constantly updating it. I'm constantly, it's open source as well as constantly being. It's also crowdsourced, so not at the moment. But anyone who wants to send me information, resources to include that are not already on it, I'm very happy to include that. And to keep building that resource. This is a resource for anybody who is in a creative industry, so that they can be more anti-racist, more intentional about being, inclusion focused. Yeah, so that's.
I'll put links to both of these in the YouTube description, and we'll also have that on my website. So any of you want to go check it out, I encourage you to do that. Yeah, I think there's a lot to learn for all of us from all of that. Thank you very, very, very much, Gavin. It's really been a privilege to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Kate. This is such a great format. I love being here. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to share and subscribe to marketingoverchai.com. You're on YouTube or wherever you podcast. I'm on Spotify and TikTok as well. It really helps us reach more people who are passionate about marketing and communications and share these ideas. Don't forget to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and YouTube, and of course, Spotify and wherever else you podcast. Keep brewing up those marketing ideas. This is Kate from Marketing Over Chai signing off. Until next time.